All right. So, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining this CRM COE roundtable. So, this is December 2023. I'm so excited that we are ending the year. Looking forward to 2024. But the purpose for today is to educate the COE leaders. Just to give a quick recap on what's happening in the world of CRM COE, primarily on the Salesforce side, that's what the focus is. But today, I have the honor and privilege to talk to Matt Kelly. He's co-founder of Outcome COE. So Matt and I are going to be discussing about what's happening in a high level, what's happening with the world of CRM COE. At the same time, share some insights, a framework, and so on and so forth. Before I go too further, I would like to introduce Matt. Matt, please introduce yourself and you know share your background, your experience with us.
Yeah, thank you, Velu. Again, everyone, nice to be with you here today as you watch this recording. My name is Matt Kelly. I'm one of the co-founders of the Outcome Center of Excellence, and I had a 6-year career at Salesforce in 2 different times. They call that a boomerang at Salesforce, working in the marketing organization on both sides of it in Salesforce. And I'm based here in Atlanta, Georgia, and worked most of the time out of the Atlanta office. But this idea of outcomes and centers of excellence is something that's near and dear to my heart. My experience was at Salesforce. I love the culture of the company. I really enjoyed working there and the people, but I love the technology. And the reason, after being affected by one of the layoffs at Salesforce, I wanted to go the rest of the way because I always loved selling the software and finding the solution that was the best fit for a customer. But then I would pass it off, and then I would come back or inherit a customer, and they hadn't achieved the outcomes and the value from the software. So it's something coming from a marketing background, and Velu and I have talked about this quite a bit. As a marketer, and as you go to a CMO in any well-run marketing company, there's always kind of this closed loop of attribution and ROI that you're able to come back to. And why? Because there's standards and there's measurement and analytics and KPIs and all of the things to track everything that happens to make sure you're spending the money in the right place. Well, we wanted to kind of apply that methodology and rigor to the Outcome Center of Excellence to make sure people are getting the value out of their IT spend, starting with Salesforce, whether it's Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, Commerce Cloud, Marketing Cloud, whichever one it is. So Velu, I appreciate being here. Like I said, our company is in its infancy, but everything's around centers of excellence. And your experience, we love having this conversation and just being a part of it. And I want to ask you some questions and learn today and tell a little bit more about what we've experienced. But it's really about what are the best practices and what do we see coming in 2024. So Velu, I'll pass it back to you.
Oh, thank you, Matt. I appreciate it. And many of you may know my background. I just wanted to take 30 seconds to introduce my background. I've been working with Salesforce ecosystem since 2000, so it's almost about 23 years. So the last 5-6 years, my specialization is on the COE. COE is, we all know that it is mandatory or kind of a mandatory evil for many companies. It's not that fun, but we can make it fun. So the last 5-6 years, I learned the purpose of COE is to maximize the CRM investments for the company. How we do, what we do, why we do, we all kind of, everybody has got a different perspective. So we will, that's my background. I've worked in the consulting space for 20+ years. Now I work for a very large company managing multiple instances with thousands and thousands of users. So it's an interesting journey, specifically on the Salesforce platform, the CRM side of it, the COE side of it. Matt, again, thanks for joining. So here is the agenda. Take it away, Matt.
Yeah, so as we think about, what we've had here and with Velu and I, we covered about ourselves, but when we think about the centers of excellence, one of the things that we wanted to talk about is, in my experience, and as I was talking to companies, I've been at a couple of the world tours here with Salesforce. The one in Atlanta just came back from Chicago, the one there, and speaking to companies, is more and more, because of the economy and post-pandemic, companies are trying to find a way to maximize the value out of the licenses that they hold. And they're working with Salesforce. And, think about it from the perspective of Salesforce, they're always trying to help customers too, but they always want to sell you more. But this kind of push and pull, right, of getting value out of it, then wanting to sell more. And the Center of Excellence is one of those areas where if a company doesn't have it, I'm advocating that. And even if it's a smaller company, just a framework that you're going to talk about, Velu, is the thing that can tie this together and help people realize, look, you've got to start somewhere.
Yep.
And there's got to be a foundation put in place. And so that's one of the things, even in a smaller organization, they have to start thinking down this pathway. Because you can't, the shadow projects that have been happening for years within companies, and I'll say it out loud, a lot of times it starts in the marketing organization, because they're kind of the marketers and they're always out there doing things and not asking for permission.
Yep.
Velu, they sneak in.
I do agree, but at the same time, Matt, one thing, COE, a lot of companies, a lot of leaders, a lot of execs think it's for large organizations, enterprise organizations. Actually, this applies even for smaller organizations, because it's a discipline in which you operate your CRM investment. And then, unless you have a discipline, a framework, the right processes, and the people, you're not going to get a value out of it. So the larger company, in fact, they can probably realize it faster because they can invest money in those processes. But the smaller organizations, they think, oh, we are small, we don't need to waste our time in the COE. That's a lot of red tape, or a blocker or a bottleneck. It slows down our ability to configure, make changes. So in the over the years that I have noticed, smaller companies get hurt more than the larger companies with respect to not having a structure.
And Velu, I agree with you, and I would tell you, having a framework that could be applied to any size company could be one of the most valuable things, because like I said, there's no spin level where you say, oh, well, you're not at this level yet, so you don't need to do this. It might be fewer people on the COE, but then mapping out what are their responsibilities and mapping that to the people in the company. Because I agree with you, because without governance, I was just dealing with a company here not long ago, and they didn't even have a full roadmap and understanding of how many platforms they were using with every line of business and what functions were happening within each application.
Totally.
How do you plan for the future to do anything moving forward if you don't even know the landscape of your own environment?
Absolutely, absolutely. So today, I think it will be good to cover the framework and moving forward. It's going to be fun
Absolutely.
conversation. Um, maybe I will start with a question, and then obviously you can ask me questions that what I find out or what I have found out so far. I can speak to the operating model.
Yeah,
Where,
please do, Velo, because this is a concept of different people have different visions of what a COE is. And like you said, some people view it very negatively, or they're like, oh, that's where things go to die or not get done. But you've done this functionally. What's worked? What do you see is like a best practice here?
so there is whether it's a small company or large company, COE, as I said, it's a discipline. It's a process, people and technology working together in a structured way. So companies like large companies like where I work, hub and spoke is very common. For a smaller organization, if you are having a few hundred licenses, one or two business units, you don't need to be a hub and spoke model.
Mm,
Let me tell you what the hub and spoke meaning. A hub is the COE where they manage the entire process with respect to security, compliance, operations for the multiple business units, those who use Salesforce or any CRM. So, in other words, let's say you have 10 instances, each instance is owned by a business unit. The COE will be the hub, and they make sure that they supply all the all the logistics. At the same time, they also the police are the governance folks.
mm,
Them the standards, give them, help them to help the business units to deliver what they need to deliver to their business teams or the customers. And so, so what happens? It becomes consistent across the company. You will be able to come up with the proper compliance, and you can apply to certain standards. So if you have developers in different business units supporting the Salesforce instances, so you can have consistency, you can share expertise, you can share the knowledge. So that is the power of hub and spoke.
mm.
But when it comes to centralized, so the downside of the hub and spoke, you have, it's like a European Union, right? So you have a monitoring agency, but speak different language, different culture. Food may be okay, but the mindset, everything is different. So bringing them together under one or few agencies like monetary and compliance, security agency, all those things. Same concept with the hub and spoke. It takes a lot of energy. It's slow, and it is a lot of nuances that you have to maneuver. I wouldn't call it politics, but at the same time, a lot of people will try to push for governance that may not be um, applicable from the company perspective.
Mm.
Whereas the centralized approach, it's very simple. There is no hub and spoke model. You have one unit which focuses on the governance, compliance, security, and so on and so forth. Directly work with the business unit or a couple of units, get things moving. So it's the smaller the organization with the fewer instances, you don't need to do the hub and spoke. You can be more centralized. So that's what I have seen, Matt, with respect to this is across the board. Last 3-4 years, I've been talking to several COE leaders. So this is what I have seen with respect to the operating model.
And Velu, to that point, and I appreciate kind of directing us down that path with you and where you started in your organization. Did you start out building the hub and spoke model? Is that where you started?
Yes, yeah. So that's how we did talk to some large enterprise, large global system integrators. So they have given some ideas, but unfortunately, there is a when we started the journey, there was no standard. There was not too much knowledge sharing. It was SI partners telling what to do, but they never operated, built and operated a COE. It's like me teaching you swimming, but I never touched the swimming pool. So I've seen the swimming pool, but I never swam. I was never a lifeguard. But now I'm teaching you how to swim. So this is actually based on the experience, and it's not one size fit all. But what I've learned, there is a framework that we can build and operate, which we will discuss along the line.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Velu. And I think that's kind of the important part of the message here is you've been doing this. And like I said, our entry into it with what we're looking at from an outcome center of excellence standpoint is is delivering value to the organization should be the number one priority of any center of excellence, the business value. That's going to affect the organization. It's going to affect the end customer, and really the trajectory and the company itself. Because the companies that are best at managing their platforms and most efficient at it and addressing the needs of the business, these are the companies that we see that are excelling, and they're the ones who weather down times or tough times like we've seen. And then when things take off, they're actually ready to go because they have standards in place and they're ready to scale rapidly and change and address what's happening in the marketplace. Any other things success factor wise you want to cover,
Yeah,
Velu?
I would. Yeah, certainly success factor is something that I can share my experience. I can also share with what other leaders have shared with me. But I also wanted to see, it's always, in a couple of things comes to my mind. America runs on Duncan, and the best run companies use SAP or Oracle, right? That's the mantras that we see.
Yes.
So what I can highlight a couple of things on the best run COEs. So they don't the best run COEs, they focus more on the business value, but they without compromising the foundation of the CRM investments. What does this mean? Make sure your security is in place, your operations are running smooth, and your resiliency is there. What does it mean? If you have 400 users today, Salesforce always says if you want to go from 400 users to 10,000 users, no problem. Just pay me the fee and I will turn it on tomorrow. And to do that, you need to be resilient, you need to be scalable, you need to have that kind of infrastructure and architecture. That is what the best run COE is. So they know how to make it's like elasticity, where you can actually scale up and you can also scale down. So these are the examples of the best run COEs. But when it comes to the success factors, there is a slight nuances. Here, hard numbers matter. What does it? Hard KPIs matter. So the success factors for the COEs primarily on how compliant are you. So highly regulated industries like where I work, healthcare, financial services, the number one, we cannot take the risk. We cannot put our members at risk. And Salesforce is a cloud platform. What does this mean? Yes, you can protect the platform, putting VPN and all kinds of things. But once the users get in, you need to have an internal protection. So anybody has got additional privilege or privileged access, they can take your data and go to www.something.com and put your data. And it is so simple. Just upload the data, export into an Excel and upload. So the number one success factor for highly regulated industry is the security and compliance. That is very, very important. The second one would be the business continuity, because the more and more we think about CRM investment, it is many companies are still having trouble, or they're struggling to ensure they're backing up the data in the right place at the right time. And then when they want to restore, they struggle the most, because when you take the data back up, the state of the object or a field or a record is going to be very different than when you restore, because things change dynamically all the time, right? So the success factors primarily security and compliance, business continuity, and then the DevOps. So what happens with the DevOps? You write a story. If it takes 3 months to get into the production, that story is stale. There is a requirement changed.
It gets old, right?
It's all
It's like fruit.
exactly. Yeah. So it is very, very important that the success factor includes how soon you can get a story into the production.
Mm.
If you can do it on a daily basis, that's the best. If you look at Netflix and Google, they write stories and they just take it to the production within a couple of days. Maybe they release every day. But large organizations, they struggle. Sometimes they do quarterly release, sometimes they do 6 weeks, sometimes they do 4 weeks. So that is also a key success factor. A well-run COEs can deliver faster with more efficient approach. These are some of the examples of the success factors, but ultimately these are foundations. But the real key success factors, the ability to contribute the COE, the through COE, if you can show the value such as the revenue growth, customer satisfaction, NPS, overall risk mitigation, that is the ultimate goal of having COE. That's when you see the ROI, the real ROI on a COE. So I can go on, Matt, but this
Yeah, but
is a
let me ask you this, Velu, because this is it's interesting because I've sold into heavy regulated industries and then also all of the others in my career. And it sounds like so in your world, when we talk about a heavy regulated industry, that governance, right, business continuity, though that foundation there, it sounds like you're going to be very good friends with the CISO at your
absolutely,
organization.
absolutely. Yeah, that's in fact, I do have a good relationship with my CISO. It's an important thing. It is more than relationship, it's the moral obligation that you have. You
Mm.
know that what is going on behind the scene. And under the hood, which CISOs don't know. And it is it's a moral responsibility in my opinion. It's an obligation, it's a responsibility, it's the highest priority that you should, if you are leading a COE or if you're leading the CRM system overall, I think this is the most important that you can think about. So yes, it's a relationship that builds the trust. It helps you to get some funding. Sometimes this is actually helping me to get some additional funding to do some cool projects that we wanted to do and
Yeah.
security.
No, and that's helpful, and it's interesting because from even when I was at Salesforce, that was something they would look for in any regulated industry is testing and asking those questions around, how were you doing your backup and restore? How often were you testing that? Did you have like what is it, Shield, that
Yeah.
product in place to see if somebody's downloading data, exporting data, all of those type of things. But Velu, let me ask you this because that's a great foundation. We're going to get some great information. But AI, I'm just coming off of 2 world tours. I'm going to New York world tour next week. AI is exploding. You can't turn around and you're getting hit in the face with AI tools, whether it's in Salesforce or every place else. What's going to happen with AI in 2024 in our world of COEs and outcomes and Salesforce?
It's like you're going to be on steroids, and if you're in certain states, if you think that you can actually be legal with cannabis, so that's how I look at it, right? So it's going to be a lot of momentum, and we all know with Salesforce the biggest advantage is the cloud multi-tenant. Industries come along with the cloud. The most frustrating challenge that we all have is the limitation with Salesforce. When I say limitation, you can't even breathe faster. It can only say you can do 14 beats per minute. That's how they do it. API limitation, Apex callout limitation, storage limitation, a number of Apex line that you can, the characters that you can do, everything there is going to be a limitation. So what AI does, it helps you to improve productivity with respect to the customer service. It also helps you to manage your sales operations much faster. Salesforce already released a chat service GPT and sales
Mhm.
GPT. So it's going to expedite a lot of things. At the same time, the leaders should be able to manage the expectation from the business. In 2024 is going to be if you ask me what is the number one challenge for the COE leaders is managing the AI. So like I'm going through it right now. So first of all, you cannot bring AI without um, approval from every aspect of the company,
Oh,
CISO,
CISO, yeah,
auditing committee, the C,
compliance, auditing, everyone.
everybody has to approve, right? That's number one. And after you bring it, it's like a free range, whatever that you call it. It's going to literally take over your environment if you don't have a good control, if you don't understand it. So
Mhm.
in 2024, if you ask me, AI is going to be the number one attention. If you don't bring it, people are going to put a lot of pressure on you that why are you not bringing AI? If you bring it, it's going to be out of control if you don't know how to manage it.
So with that, Velu, think about this. Once you get it approved to bring it into your organization,
Mhm.
how do you see people framing it and where you're going to allow it within the organization? Any thoughts there?
It is, yes, and actually I'm living through it right now. I'm thinking,
It's directional information, right,
yes,
Velu?
yes, it is. It is. So we looked at the AI. AI has been there for many, many years. I'm talking about specifically open AI. Let's
Mhm.
call it even GPT, part of the AI, right? So we are looking at that into two aspects. One is the end user personas, salespeople, service people.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's one constituents. The second one is the development community, BAs, developers, architects, admins. So we are splitting that into two areas. So we
Mhm.
are putting a POC for two personas, if you call it. If I don't know whether that's the right word, but let's
No,
call it
I would call them that. That's a good way to frame it up.
right. So what happens is we are creating the POs, use cases for each persona. For developers, it's easy. Yeah, GPT helps create Apex code, test classes, and write stories, and even writes requirements, test cases, all of these things that you can do. So how can you expedite the end-to-end journey of developing, creating a story, deploying it much faster? That's one area. Then for users, for sales users and customer service agents, how do you enable AI so when they write an email, they don't have to, it helps you to create faster emails. Number one. Number two, for the
Mhm.
customer service agents, it can go and look at the case notes and it can give you, my mind doesn't, it gives you case summary or whatever you call it. I'm
Mhm.
thinking the right word for it. But that is how we are approaching AI in 2024.
No, and I appreciate that. That's the when I think about it, Velu, and I'm excited about seeing how organizations adopt AI because as a salesperson, which I've been with kind of a technical background, if I were able to just tell my CRM instance that's tied into the marketing automation platform and say, here, find me all of my prospects who fit this profile and we are having an event on this date and in this area, and please draft me an email. I'll review it and then deploy the email.
It is so powerful.
It
I
could
have
do that. It literally could do that. Now, is it there right now? Not quite yet. But but the power of that, well, do you want to give salespeople that power? You're like, wait a second, we probably want marketing to make sure. Oh, marketing would be tied in to make sure anything that goes out is approved and falls within the brand guidelines, right? AI can do that.
Absolutely.
This is where I think it gets so powerful for what we can do. So I appreciate that insights, but I think we want to keep on moving because I think, as we talk about the future, if all of these things fit within your framework, which I'm excited to kind of talk about here, because I think the framework is the key, because I could take a framework to a small company and help them figure this out and how to put it in
Absolutely.
place. So let's talk about this because this is exciting.
Yes, absolutely. So again, the purpose today for you and I, Matt, to educate the COE leaders, what's happening, and is there a framework? Can we build a framework? Can we follow the framework? This is what I have found, and actually, I'm building one myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I have actually built, but it is not 100% matured. It's a maturity that it has to go through. So number one, the framework. I look at COE. What do you do as a COE? I manage functions. Through functions, I produce deliverables. Through deliverables, I connect the dots. What are the dots? The dots are, yeah, I'm improving the capabilities of an organization, specifically in the sales, service, and marketing. But connecting the dot doesn't mean anything unless I see that there is a growth and there is a cost associated being impacted in a positive way, and looking at the customer satisfaction and make sure the overall risk is mitigated. So the framework, if I what I've seen talking to a lot of COE leaders over this year and last year, not everyone has got a good framework.
Mm.
So the framework has to, let's say each COE function, each COE leader will have multiple responsibilities. You have some of them have some responsibilities, some of them have many, many, many responsibilities. But what I have understood working for the last 6, 7 years in this field, specifically on the COE side, each area can be kind of divided into a function. For
Mm-hmm.
example, DevOps is a function of COE. Architecture is a COE function. So, how do you build, whether you would do an API or do you do a data upload? How do you do what is the best practice integration?
Mm-hmm.
Architecture is also a function. Business continuity, which we already talked about, that's a function. Data governance.
Mm.
See, the data is actually companies. I remember when I started 20 in 2000, I got 5 licenses were free for 1 full year. For next 5 years, I paid $60 for 5 licenses per month. Per month.
Mm.
So I was grandfathered with so many things that people would, if I go and tell them, no, you're lying to me. So the data that we had at the time, it was 1 megabyte, sorry, 100 megabytes for one user. Today they give you gig, I think. So the users get more data. So the data governance is so critical. Tech debt, we all know what the tech debt means. So similarly, there are about 27 functions. So that constant, if you are a COE leader and if you are leading, doesn't have to be COE leader. If you're owner of the CRM platform, you are the VP of CRM, whatever the title that you're responsible for. So we seen up to 27 functions. I'm happy to share, not today, but if somebody wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to share. But these functions impact the business capabilities.
Mm.
These are the three: sales, service, and marketing. But at the end of the day, anything that you do, if you're not able to tie the activity into a business outcome, it doesn't mean anything. You're not going to see the money that you're spending. Then why are you spending money? So that is the framework. And I'm working on yeah, kind of a big manual, you call it, how to put it, how do you rate? Not every function is equally rated, equally weighted. You
Mhm.
have the right weighted average and today, yeah, DevOps might be higher in the beginning when you are doing the foundation, but over the period it will be matured. So then you have to ramp up your focus on other functions. So that is where the COE experience, the maturity comes, which we can talk about. If
Yeah,
we want to talk about further.
yeah, in Velu, this is interesting, and as we talked about this, because one of the reasons why, my personal experience is I would talk to companies about, why were they looking at changing what they were doing. And candidly, in the Salesforce ecosystem, what would happen? So a company has some change in the upper management, and they bring on somebody new who, as a Salesforce employee, we'd say, "Oh, they're a Salesforce champion." And they come into an organization and they start kind of figuring out what they have on hand and looking at opportunities like where is the value of Salesforce? Where could it be realized here at this company? And look, we always loved finding a champion, but one of the things that like I challenge people to now, just as you were talking to, down at the bottom here, let's get so uh, good at our discovery and understanding what is the true business value of doing this project. If we track it not to outputs, but to outcomes and value, then we can close this loop. And I like when we think about it that way, Velu, because in Salesforce, if you ever get one of their larger presentations, doesn't matter if multi-cloud, single cloud, whatever it is, they always have a business value matrix
Yeah.
at the end of the presentation,
Yes.
which is funny because I look at well, shouldn't that be at the beginning? Should we start here with the value of why we're even having this conversation? But there's a methodology even to the presentation, right? Like here are the challenges, right? And here's our solution. And then they get to the business value. And that's one of the reasons, like our conversation, why I love this so much, because if I have a framework and I know where the framework maps within my organization, sales, service, marketing, and there'll obviously be cross-functional areas, right, there.
Yep.
But bring it full circle, bring it back to the value that you're going to provide to the business. And then it becomes very easy to either ingest and figure out what projects are you going to do and what's the value of it and why does something get prioritized above something else within the organization, because we know what it's going to either gain the organization or what it's going to save the organization. And does it align strategically to the key objectives for the year or next 3 years?
Absolutely. One thing that I also want to mention here, Matt,
Mm-hmm.
the working with multiple people, I'm constantly talking to the COE leaders, and in fact, I presented to a large companies. Salesforce sometimes calls me and say, "Hey, can you speak to this folks?" And I love to speak to them. The more knowledge I share, the more I gain from them. That's the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, See, this COE is not fun. I can tell you that it
You
is
said that
not.
a few times. You're like, this is work.
It is work, and it is. So people look at you. It's like a building maintenance engineer.
Mm.
Without building maintenance engineer, your building is going to be unsafe. It might stink. It might be cold or hot, but you never see the maintenance engineer. So many organizations, there are maintenance engineers, but the maintenance engineers, if you can bring them to the forefront, they know what is going on inside the building. And if they can be part of the planning committee to build multi-story on top of your existing story, that is very important. That's how I look at the COE. See, many organizations, or COE, okay, you build some the preconceived notion, you take care of my background. But This is where I believe a good, experienced, qualified, skilled leaders can make the organization transform. They can transform the organization
Mm,
as you have a lot more knowledge, lot more expertise, and you have a lot of insights that others will not have. But that is, it's like a swimming against the current.
mm.
But if you do it, I think that's when they see the value of the COE and the leader. So something that I have noticed at CO, they just get frustrated. Oh, I'm not getting funding. I'm not getting good support from leadership to run this. Initially, what I've seen, if you're starting COE, it is fun, right? Everybody wants to talk to you because you can go and put some controls and say, hey, you're doing something wrong. We take away the admin rights, put lots of checks and balances. That's a fun period. But once that is done, stabilized, then what do you do? And it becomes a slow. So this is where,
The cleanup, fix it governance that early on, like you said, and there's probably you feel very accomplished in those early stages because you're like, look what we did,
yep,
right? Now we have governance. Now the CISO's happy with us. We have, we can back up our store. We built a foundation. And then they say, well, what's next?
exactly. And that is where the framework helps. You need to
That,
have the framework, and the framework needs to connect the dots between functions, capabilities, and outcome.
yeah,
The more you show, then people realize that, okay, this is the right thing to do. And that's my experience. I'm actually super excited in 2024. Once I built the manual and trying to share with people. In fact, I'm applying in my organization. It's not that I'm actually trying to teach swimming without ever touching the pool. So that I'm actually applying everything that I'm talking here, which is I learn and apply and perform, and then try to see how to share the knowledge with others, and vice versa.
very nice. Very nice. Well, Velu, let's talk about what do you see in the future and kind of moving forward here. Let's talk about this because you're setting this up for, being a janitor doesn't sound like much fun. But how do we make this fun and then, connecting the dots and the value? Like, talk to us about this moving forward.
Yeah, so the moving forward, every organization should have a strong COE leader, in my opinion. Yeah, you don't want a platform owner or a platform, in my official title is not a COE, mine is a executive director for platform. What it
Mm,
means, I manage the entire platform except the delivery. So I call it COE because it's widely known terminology. So moving forward, um, so the COE function should be only an enabler, not delivery function.
Now, you mentioned to me earlier, and I thought this was a very important point. What's the danger or the risk of having the COE own delivery?
It's a I don't have a good analogy, but maybe I can try this analogy: fox and hen house,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what does this? Okay, let's cut to the chase. Let's say if I'm delivering, I'm also doing the governance. I'm always pressured to deliver the outcome within the budget, within the time frame. So I don't have time to governance. To do a self-governance and delivery, you gotta be next to God. I am that I don't know whether humans are set for that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that is why the governance and the delivery should be split. Separation of duties is very, very important. For example, if a security person implements application and he's also doing the security on your application, Certainly that's not going to work. But that's not how the organization. Yeah, if you remember Accenture, Anderson Consulting, Enron, an auditing company also doing the actual work, that doesn't work that way. Same approach here. You the COE function should be enablement, governance, compliance, policing, advisory services, innovation, growth, whereas the delivery leaders should be given full freedom to deliver without the bottlenecks or the blockers around them.
And that is a great analogy. And I will tell you this because we are of a certain age here, Velu. Enron is the perfect example, but sadly, there are many people younger than us that might not know who Enron is.
Absolutely. But Google is there. If I say Enron,
It
they can.
is. It is. You say,
Right.
just Google this to understand what we're talking about.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you're moving forward, as you see here,
Mhm.
enabling the delivery leaders, make sure that you own the governance architecture resiliency. Don't blame it on others. Or they're not listening to me. You got to own it. You cannot be sitting there and watching things happen. But you just have to own it. Understanding the business functions is very critical. A lot of COE are platform owners. They focus more on the technology, technical, and fun stuff from Salesforce. They miss the big picture of the sales, service, and marketing. How does a lead get generated, and what is the cost of lead, cost of sale, the sales cycle, and what's the cost of a phone call, and how do you manage a call center? All those things you need to have a good understanding.
Yes, yes.
Right.
And look, Velu, I'll just say this because being at Salesforce for the 6 years that I was, like I would get wrapped up in the technology and the bells and the whistles and the new features and capabilities and the product roadmap and what was coming, right? And it was so easy to get caught up in that and then say, okay, but how is this going to benefit my customer? What's going to be the impact and the value, especially in a large organization, of what that was going to be? And you know that some people are just so technology driven. They get excited about, oh, look what this is going to do. And then you see it and you demo it. And like I said, connecting the dots there to the value to the organization and who it's going to impact is a big piece of the puzzle, I think, with any center of excellence, is helping the business acumen and understanding your business, and then the technology and marrying those two things together.
Absolutely. And then most importantly, as you see Salesforce, they evolved starting from, if I remember, there were about 8 tabs. They wouldn't even call it Sales Cloud when they started. There was just login. There is a classic version of this. I really remember they have accounts, contact, opportunities. And then they started with Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, blah, 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 so many clouds. They became so cloudy. Then they said, now we are going to be calling ourselves industries. So
Yes.
Salesforce giving industry solution. They are not giving Sales Cloud. They are not giving Service Cloud. They are giving industry solutions. What does this mean to the people like me, like you, the platform owners and the COE leaders? They need to know the business. Important, the most important. And it is the more you know the business, that's the top. More you know about the business functions like capabilities, then you learn the function, or you go bottom up. But you need to balance. You gotta have the equilibrium of understanding all these things. Unless you have that good view on these 3 areas, you just can't move forward. So the COE leaders have to look at this. Yes, you have to stabilize, you got to scale, you got to innovate and grow. You can only do this by systematically learning business functions, industries, and then your own functions.
And that's one of the things, and Velu, we had talked about this earlier, but in my time at Salesforce, starting in 2016, when I first started, that was before there were any industries. And
totally.
so since 2016, it was funny because 2016 was a year at Dreamforce that they announced Einstein.
Mhm.
Came out with the mascot, the logo. I still got the socks with Einstein on them. But here we are now in getting ready for 2024, where now we're seeing what AI is really going to do for us.
Totally. I think,
And
yeah.
go ahead.
No, sorry, I interrupted you, but AI keeps me some days sleepless nights, especially after watching Gemini, Google Gemini, which they released it about a couple of days ago. That's mind-boggling. I mean, if you have not watched Matt, you should watch YouTube Gemini, Google Gemini AI model, the multi-model AI. I mean, like this is going to it's the OpenAI is already disrupting.
It
I
is.
had and I attended my town hall meetings. I had a senior exec coming and speaking to the town hall. He embraced it. Yes, oh, AI is here to stay, and it is going to disrupt. It's already disrupting. It's changing, but how it is going to impact? I think the moving forward, it is the less the technology becomes a little bit more transparent, meaning you don't need to be 300 admin certificate, I mean 300 certifications, focus on that. I think that becomes a little bit more easier to deal with it because it's more pre-built functionality available than creating a lot of customization. Configuration will continue to rise in the new world. AI will continue to enable, whereas the personas that we talked about, the end users and the development community, they got to step up the game. It's a do or die. The larger companies, in my opinion, will be 100% impacted. All of the 100% of the companies will be impacted, but in the level in which or the speed in which they change, that's how they're going to stay competitive. Otherwise, it becomes like Uber, Netflix with the yellow box, right?
Yep.
What I forgot the yellow box. I only know the yellow box store. What's
Oh
that?
yeah, Blockbuster.
Blockbuster. It's called Blockbuster. They become busted. So that's what happens with the AI. So they don't.
And in Velu, to your point, and I know we're going to wrap up here shortly, but I do agree with this, and this is something I've always I saw it years and years and years ago, and it was a little cartoon, and it talked about this idea of some new technology coming along, and somebody saying, well, that's going to take my job, and in the kind of the next version of that was, or the kind of the antidote for that is like, well, look, technology might replace your job, but the people who learn the technology and
Mm,
learn and are hungry learners and want to understand and move forward and adapt it into their world will replace the ones who don't want to learn that technology. And,
totally,
and
totally.
I have friends in the developer community that I talked to them 6 months ago, and they were totally like, oh my, they were worried, like, what is AI going to do to my job? And I said, don't worry about that. Figure out how AI is going to help you be a better developer. And if you start now 6 months ago, you'll be ahead of everyone else who's worried and like clutching themselves and afraid to learn it. I'm like, dive in,
Absolutely. Today is
figure it out.
December 8th, 2023. We are speaking. Unemployment is 3.7. And AI was released on the November of last year. So, so there is a interesting thing, right? We are thinking that many jobs will be replaced, whereas the US unemployment is 3.7. We added 190 plus thousand jobs this year. I mean, this month or last month.
Mhm.
So it is interesting to see, but it will certainly replace some of the jobs that can be done by AI. So that's how I see it. But it's an interesting topic to
It is.
talk.
We could talk an hour just about
I
that.
agree. Yeah.
But Velu, let's hit this conclusion because I think this is important because you've lived this
Mhm.
and tell us about the journey.
Yeah, so a lot of people think CRM, I mean, sorry, COE is not a lot of people think CRM or any COE is not it's a work. It's a lot of work. It's a journey, and it's a long haul. It is not one time build and leave. It is yeah, an example would be when you start a company, you may not need a HR department, but once the company becomes a certain size, you need to have a HR. Until you close the company, you will have a HR. So this is how it works. When you start Salesforce, you may not have a COE, but once you reach out to 100 users, 200 users, you need COE, and it's a journey. So the sooner you start, you can mature and add value quickly. So typically, this is what I've seen. Year one, companies that they don't have a COE or they're trying to formalize the COE. A lot of companies have COE, but they don't have a framework, structure, or anything like that. They
Mhm.
just have a bunch of people. Some leaders will be there. Some people say, "Oh, here is you put together some procedures and operating manual or whatever you call it, standards, best practice." But year one, yeah, if you're starting from the scratch or if you're restructuring or revamping your COE, make sure that you have a good business continuity, DevOps, and risk mitigation in place.
Mhm.
That is the step number one.
That's that
Why-
foundation, right?
Exactly. That's a
Velu?
foundation, right? And to me, why is it taking a year long? It depends. I just said year one. I didn't mean that it is year one, meaning it takes a year. It could be 6 months, it could be 3 months, but the longer you go more than a year, you are losing time and you are putting a lot of money onto your CRM investments. Users are using it, but you don't have the foundation. It's going to be much more problematic. So I
Mhm.
say the year one. Year two, make sure your operations are efficient. It is operating in a way where it's cost contained. You cannot completely stop the cost, but it can be contained.
Mhm.
Call center, sales operations, and release management, which is your DevOps, yeah, continuation of DevOps, but managing better release management, synchronizing with Salesforce release, taking the Salesforce release functionalities, integrating that with your development work. That is year two. So year three, that's when you start thinking about innovation, growth, and customer experience. So a
Mhm.
lot of people try to run before crawling or walking. Don't do that. It is a process. It's a journey. It is rewarding for the company. For people like me, I was always in the front end of the delivery because I was a consultant. It's fun, right? I go talk to the VP of sales, VP of marketing, sell the project, deliver. I don't care how badly I mess up, and I leave, go to the next project. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been fixing the back end. Amount of knowledge, the experience that I gained, it's invaluable for the company and for me as well.
Yeah.
So, in conclusion, COE is a journey. It can be done in a structured way. Once you do it, you will see the benefit. You will see the reward. I'll give you an example. When I can share my own experience. When I started the foundation, started the operations. I'm in a year four now. Now I'm talking about strategy, planning. How do we take this? So now the people who approve funding, they're asking, show me the business benefit of even if it's $1 million project, $500,000 project, the business benefit. Since I built the framework, it's easy for me to go and say, okay, put money in this function, which will affect this business function. This will be the outcome. So then I can actually show them the value. So that is the power of having a structure and a framework. Initially, everybody gets excited with the CR Salesforce. Oh, I got money. It'll. There was one of the guys who I met with a neurologist who is in Chicago. He said, you buy Microsoft Word thinking that you will be the best well-known author next day. It's the same thing. You buy Salesforce thinking that your growth will be 300 folds, 300 times more next year. It doesn't work that way.
No.
It's a whole process. It's a journey. I'm actually happy to share this experience with you, Matt, and I thank you for joining and sharing this experience with our fellow COE leaders. And then, this is exciting for me, but it's a Friday evening for you already.
Yeah, no, in Velu, I appreciate being a part of this because look, we've met here just in the last couple of months. But for those who are going to view this, this framework that you're building is exciting to me because there are no standards here.
Yep.
Nobody's built the framework. Nobody's done this. And that's one of the things, like for us, our framework, what we're building, right? It is around business value. Or like that should be the end all, that should be the final decision is the either the revenue that your solution is going to deliver to the business and growth, or the operational efficiency and cost savings. Those are the two levers we have. And how we map that, I think your framework and foundation will work hand in hand with that, because you could say, I know exactly who this is going to affect and how it's going to affect them. And let me tell you what the exponential impact is going to be down the road. So I appreciate the time today and getting to do this recording with you. And I'm excited to see what you come out with. And like I said, when we get our first version of what we're going to build, like I said, you'll see it before anyone. But I'm excited for what it will do for organizations, because we feel like it will help organizations maximize their value of their IT departments and help run a more structured, better business. And the better you run the platforms within your business, we see all of the data that shows those are the companies that can weather a storm and deal with a growth explosion or even a downsizing, because they have everything dialed in and the governance is there.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, this is an exciting times for us, and the CRM is going to stay. When good times, when the economy is there, they don't spend too much time and money on improving the investments. When the economy goes down, that's when everybody tightens the belt. So, in my recommendation to the fellow COE leaders, build when economy is good, build a structure. So when the economy goes south or impacted, you will have, that's when you will see the power. And that's when people will come and see the value that you brought to the company. All right. Thank you, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Velu. I appreciate it. And it's nice to be a part of this today. And I look forward to doing this again, and like the next iteration in 2024, like predictions and what's new in 2024.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hold on, let me stop the video.